all can survive and move ahead. In short, we need one another because we are all brothers and sisters. Fratelli Tutti. Our Holy Father, Pope Francis, has been, right from the beginning of his pontificate, of fraternity and social relationship, after the example and St. Francis of Assisi, his patron saint. In choosing the name Francis, the Pope was calling the Church to be of the poor, for the poor, a church that shares and that gives love and service. He was calling the Church to be a field hospital, serving the wounded humanity, irrespective of caste, creed, and gender, thus upholding human dignity as individual persons and as universal citizens, members of the one human family. During the pandemic, the Holy Father has led the Church holding out hope for humanity, hope based on love, reminding us the words of Jesus: if you love one another, then the world will know that you are my disciples. Fratelli Tutti is an encyclical that analyzes the present global scenario and invites all to be truly children of the one Heavenly Father, moving from limited and restricted boundaries to envisage and engender an open world built on love, a universal love that promotes persons, promotes moral good, and upholds human rights, rights without borders. The question of the lawyer in the parable of the Good Samaritan, on which the Holy Father gives a beautiful meditation, needs to be asked by all constantly. Who is my neighbor? And act in response in compassion and love towards the needy, the poor, the wayward, the suffering, and the lonely neighbor. The Holy Father's invitation to have a heart open to the whole world is very timely and addressed to all people of goodwill, including us, to think globally and act locally. For this to happen, dialogue and friendship are very necessary. Dialogue of life, dialogue between people, between nations, and between religions. The 8th chapter of the Encyclical on religion at the service of fraternity in the world reminds us that all religions have the sacred opportunity and duty to promote fraternity and friendship. It's only by being open and friendly to all, shedding all prejudices, that we can build a society where every human being experiences his or her dignity as a child of God. I wish to conclude these introductory remarks of mine with the words of Pope Francis himself, which he writes in number 8 of the Encyclical. Let us dream then as a single human family, as fellow travelers sharing the same flesh, as children of the same earth, which is our common home, each of us bringing the richness of his or her beliefs and convictions with his or her own voice, brothers and sisters all. I wish all of you a very fruitful evening. Fratelli Tutti. God bless.
I can present. I can start.
Father, you can start.
Okay.
Father, you can start.
Can you see the screen? Are you able to see the screen?
We can see it. We can see it.
Okay, then I'll start. Okay, good evening to all of you, all those who are in the room and all those who are outside watching through the YouTube. Welcome to this address on Fratelli Tutti, and thanks for inviting me to address in half an hour a gist and my assessment of Fratelli Tutti. So I am given half an hour, so let my time start now. This is what I am intending to present. I will start with the preliminary information on the Fratelli Tutti, and I will talk about the title itself, starting with the title. Then I will give an overview of all the chapters, but I will not go to every chapter by chapter presentation will not be there. Then I will focus on something that is unique and common in this Fratelli Tutti. What is unique about Fratelli Tutti? What is common about Fratelli Tutti? And I would focus mainly three familial phases. That means three important topics that are, according to me, very important topics for me that are emerging from the Fratelli Tutti. There are many other topics, but I just restrict to these three. And finally, some concluding comments, a kind of assessment, and conclusion with the final incident connected to Fratelli Tutti. So this is what I am intending to present. I will try to finish within half an hour. I hope to finish within half an hour. So let me start. Preliminary information is released, as Archbishop said, 4th October on the feast of St. Francis of Assisi at Assisi. It is an encyclical. It is not apostolic exhortation. It is not apostolic letter. It is not apostolic constitution. Not motu proprio. That means Pope can release many types of documents, but this is called encyclical. What is the specialty of encyclical? Good to know, which is quite different from other types of papal documents. Encyclical is a Greek word which is coming from Greek, which means circle or cyclo. Circle, what is circulated. Something like a circular of the bishop, a kind of pastoral letter. Here the pastoral letter from the Bishop of Rome, who is the pastor of all pastors and entire church. So it is a pastoral letter pertaining to faith or morals. So that is what is encyclical about. Then this is the first encyclical signed outside Rome. Most of the encyclicals are signed at Rome, at Vatican. And this is a social encyclical. And in the series of social encyclical, this is a second social encyclical from Pope Francis. First one, Laudato Si. But among the encyclicals, it's a third encyclical from Pope Francis. The first encyclical was Lumen Fidei. Second one, Laudato Si. And this is the third one, Fratelli Tutti. The last two are social encyclicals. In fact, this encyclical, when it was presented first time, a Muslim was in the panel of presentation. We never had in the presentation of any papal documents a Muslim present. This is the first time a Muslim being presented. And this encyclical is also called Encyclical of Social Friendship. In the subtitle of the encyclical, you will find this title, subtitle, Encyclical of Social Friendship. Now let us go to the title, Fratelli Tutti. Normally all the papal documents, even church documents, are with a Latin title. This is a special title with the Italian title. Laudato Si also Italian title, not Latin, but antique Italian. This is a normal Italian, and it is Italian title. It is not Latin. Normally all the papal documents are in Latin, but this particular one with specifically Italian title. But the meaning of this title is not provided in the encyclical. Description of the title is provided. The meaning written there. Normally, the title itself will be explained, or meaning will be there in the first sentence of the document, but it is not given there. Literal meaning would be brothers all, if you literally translate Fratelli Tutti, but you will find many of the editions of the encyclical. Even in India, there are three publications have released this encyclical: Claretian, CCBI, and St. Paul's. You will find different titles there. Brothers and sisters all brothers and sisters, brothers all. You will find varieties of titles given. But encyclical itself in the content does not give meaning of the title. Description is given in the beginning. It is coming from where? This title is coming from St. Francis of Assisi, one of his admonitions. That is why his way of addressing people. He used to address people, Fratelli Tutti. What does it mean? Brothers all? No. Somehow some people would consider this title a sexist title, favoring male, not female. When we say brothers all, Fratelli means brothers. But in that language at that time, Fratelli Tutti is a very inclusive language used. It's meant to include both brothers and sisters. Like we have in English earlier time, even now people use, when we say mankind, though it is a male term, we consider all are included, men and women, etc. So something like that in Italian. This is not a sexist title. According to the language of the time, it considers everyone included. But there were a lot of complaints and repercussions among the people, especially feminists, why this title was used, which was actually a sexist title. Vatican tried to explain the meaning of this title with its original meaning of the term and how that title is original to St. Francis of Assisi's way of addressing. So they tried to be faithful to the original, and also it is meant in that time and in that language as including brothers and sisters. Even then, I don't think many people were satisfied with that answer. Even though the title may look exclusive, entire Fratelli Tutti uses inclusive language. That is something to be appreciated. Now let us look at the chapters. There are 8 chapters. These are the 8 chapters. I'm not going to look into all the chapters, but just to give an overall idea about the 8 chapters. The first chapter, Dark Clouds Over a Closed World. I would think that is an introductory problem of the situation of the Fratelli Tutti. So the first chapter introduces the problem of the Fratelli Tutti, why we are not brothers all, brothers and sisters all. The second chapter, I would look at it from a theological, it's the only theological chapter or theological content in the entire Fratelli Tutti. So the first chapter situates the problem, second chapter gives the theology. And the rest of the chapters is actually the solution, how to live as brothers and sisters from different sectors and different angles. This is how the entire Fratelli Tutti is divided. If I can put the entire Fratelli Tutti into one sentence, what could be the tagline? If I can summarize into entire Fratelli Tutti one sentence, this is what I would say after reading this Fratelli Tutti. We need to learn the art of living as brothers and sisters with all. I underline the word all. It's very important. No one to be excluded. No one to be excluded. So we need to learn the art of living as brothers and sisters with all. If I can summarize entire encyclical into one sentence, this is what I think. Now let us go to the next topic, uniqueness and something very common in the Fratelli Tutti. First thing, this is a continuation of the previous encyclical, Laudato Si. You can see a continuation of Laudato Si, which is about environment, our common home, earth and universe, and it continues. It is our family, entire family, brother, son, sister, moon. The same theme is continued in this Fratelli Tutti. You can see also in the Fratelli Tutti, in the second paragraph, Canticle of Creation is introduced, and where the brothers and sisters all continued from the previous encyclical. Second, familiar concepts of Francis already here you can find. He himself says, Pope Francis says, earlier homilies, talks and ideas of his own are inside this. So you will find lots of familiar talks that were already talked about by Pope Francis, already inside. That is in paragraph 5 you will find. It is an encyclical, I would say, Franciscan encyclical. Laudato Si, in a way, Franciscan, because it is connected to St. Francis of Assisi. Even this encyclical, not only with the title, even the very theme running through, brothers and sisters are very much Franciscan. In fact, he introduced St. Francis of Assisi, the saint of fraternal love, in paragraph 2. Number 4 is a joint venture, the entire encyclical. So it is not popes alone. Pope himself admits it is a venture collaboration with a Muslim, an imam. Who is this imam? You know, if you look at Laudato Si, you can understand how Pope Francis wrote Laudato Si. It was a joint venture with an Orthodox patriarch, Bartholomew. He is not a Catholic, Orthodox patriarch. So Laudato Si is a fruit of a collaborative work of a Pope and a patriarch. And this one is a joint venture between an imam, a Muslim leader, a high priest, we can say that way. His name is Ahmad, whom Pope Francis met in Abu Dhabi 2 years back when he visited United Emirates. So he had signed a contract there with this imam, and part of the encyclical is emerging from there. You can see that one towards the end of the encyclical, the contract he has signed and the content of that contract, part of it actually. Something more, it is not only familiar terms and concepts used, it is also familial. related to family. Entire encyclical is familiar, means family connected theme. What is that? The whole Fratelli Tutti considers and is talking about the art of living as a family. So it is everything about family spirit. How we humanity need to live as family. We have in our Upanishad the famous phrase Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The world is a family. The same concept is also we can find the entire Fratelli Tutti. It's a family connected theme. And Fratelli Tutti is also having a hodgepodge of variety of topics. I'm not going to introduce all the topics. There are 20 to 30, 40 different topics in the societies introduced and reflected and discussed. I just introduced a few of them just to know which topics are discussed inside. Pandemic is discussed, war is discussed, women are discussed, about migrants, about family, about poverty, globalization, racism, religions, UN, United Nations, human rights, ecology, politics, media, love, walls of prejudice, listening, violence, death penalty, etc. You see variety, a range of topics coming in this Fratelli Tutti. But the underlying message of all these topics is to live as family, not even as neighbors. Mind, we are not here to live as neighbors, we are here to live as brothers and sisters. So this is the basic underlying, I would say, the major message in this entire Fratelli Tutti. Continuing on that, as Archbishop already mentioned, this entire encyclical is a dream of Pope Francis. He mentions that in the introduction, which Archbishop read this particular part. He already read this. Let us dream to live as brothers and sisters. Archbishop read this part towards the end of his introduction. This is, I believe, the entire Fratelli Tutti is a dream of Pope Francis. Now, with this introduction, let me give you three important phases, family-related phases from Fratelli Tutti. What are the three important phases according to me? I just take three important. One is pandemic phase. In fact, the entire Fratelli Tutti begins with the panic of pandemic. But it is not something negative. Pope Francis taken it. He sees something positive about this pandemic. So pandemic has created a positive phase in the entire humanity. How? He says, helping humanity, the pandemic has helped humanity to strive towards a global community. That we are a family. How did pandemic help us to live and consider ourselves we are a community? Because all are in the same boat. Every nation is affected by this. And this particular phrase, all are in the same boat, coming from Jesus calming the sea. Pope Francis already talked about it on 27th March 2020 in the evening during the pandemic, during the Ubi Earth Orbi blessing. He already gave a homily on that, to an empty space at St. Peter's Square on this. And he said this, all are in the same boat. And he said that, and repeated here in Fratelli Tutti, one person's problem is everybody's problem. So we are facing entire pandemic as a single family. It is not somebody's problem. And he says, no one is saved alone. We are all in the same boat. Either we will perish together or we will be saved together. So no one suffers alone. No one is saved alone. We are together in this man. So pandemic has created a global human family. So this is a famous quote from the paragraph 32, which I already mentioned. Now let's go to the second topic, theology of Fratelli Tutti. Now, what is this theology of Fratelli Tutti? Probably this is only theological content in the entire Fratelli Tutti. It's a social encyclical, so you don't expect too much of theology in a social encyclical. But the second chapter is very much connected to a theological part. What is this theology? A story, Gospel of Luke, several times, umpteen times retold and relived in the history of the church. The story of the Good Samaritan. And what is that story? A stranger from another faith, another culture, another race becomes a hero of the story, a model for all of us. And who is a stranger, who is also not of our religion, not of our faith, he becomes a hero, the protagonist of the story. And that is a theological basis, entire Fratelli Tutti. What does it tell us? He says one beautiful statement, which I'll give you the exact quotation. In all of us, there is something of the robber, something of the passers-by, something of the victim, and something of the Samaritan. All of us, one way or the other, depict something of the robber, something of the victim, something of the passers-by, or even a good Samaritan, or even the victim. And that is part of our culture and life. And what was the greatest contribution of the Samaritan? Was it his oil and the money that he gave, or took the victim on his horseback, or the animal? No, he gave his time. That is the greatest contribution of the stranger. A stranger meeting a stranger, and he gave his time for that stranger who is the victim. So Pope Francis acknowledges that greatest contribution was he gave his time. And who is that neighbor? It is love that determines who my neighbor is. We may live under the same roof, in the same family, in the same community, but that person who lives with me, eats with me, need not be my neighbor. The neighbor is one to whom I show my love. So neighbor need not be one who is physically near to me. Neighbor can be anyone far away, but that person to whom I show love, and that determines who my neighbor is. Continuing on this is a quotation, famous quotation. All of us have in ourselves something of the wounded man, something of the robber, something of the passers-by, and something of the good Samaritan. So we all have this particular attitude, or let's say culture in all of us. Now let us go to the last topic, the world as family. The entire world to live as. And Pope Francis has this dream, entire world to live as. It continued, it started with the Laudato Si, now it is continued with the Fratelli Tutti. How does he see the world to be a family? He says, ask this question. Are we neighbors or siblings? Means, he says globalization has made us to be neighbors to each other, but not so much to be brothers and sisters to each other. So this is a question all of us need to ask. Are we neighbors just living side by side, or are we treating the other person as my own brother or my own sister? Second, is this world an indifferent world? So how do we need to move from this indifferent world to a world of Fratelli Tutti, a world of brothers and sisters for all? Now, he says there is a need for globalization of human rights. Human rights, which are not practiced everywhere in the right way. So there is a need for globalizing that. And there is also reform of UN, United Nations. United Nations is a family of many nations. So that family concept has to come back to UN. When in all this, the smallest or the basic unit is a family. So family is the starting point. So if family is set all right, the many other structures and units will be all right. So I just would like to quote Sister or Saint Angela Merici's famous quotation that is not mentioned in Fratelli Tutti, but that is a kind of basis for all this. Saint Angela Merici is the one who said, disorder in the society is a result of disorder in the family. And today we can say vice versa also. Disorder in the family is also the result of disorder in the society. Angela Merici said only this. Today we can say both ways, vice way. So a kind of familial spirit that has to come back. Continuing on this, he speaks, which he spoke in Laudato Si, persons treated according to their usefulness or need. So if you are old or elderly or sick or unwanted, thrown out. Or throwaway culture, which is, it says throwaway culture not only in the environment, throwaway culture not only in the food and nature, even among humanity. So that attitude is still there existing in the humanity. And deterioration of media ethics. There are a few paragraphs mentioned on this. Media ethics, that means today's media, including social media, digital media, including Catholic media he mentions, that is at times filled with the defamation, slander, fake, even at the expense of spoiling or putting down the names of others, the good names of others. So media sometimes play this kind of low ethics. He even speaks about Catholic media that also plays sometimes in this way. Then plight of migrants, refugees, immigrants, due to lack of familial approach. So he even says, are these migrants treated as part of our family or just an outsider or a stranger? So this is his dream, now human world as a family. And he speaks about walls. Archbishop spoke about that. We build walls where? Starting in our heart, in our mind, and in the land. Everywhere walls. And in fact, the word walls appear in this Fratelli Tutti 14 times. Many times he speaks about these walls that separate us from each other. And this wall he speaks in one place, we build walls in heart and land. Continuing on this, the role of religion, especially in the last chapter, he says, what's the purpose of religion? He says, the role of religion is to establish friendship, harmony and peace, the basic role and function of religions. And in fact, this particular quotation is taken from Indian Bishops' Conference, CBCI, Catholic Bishops' Conference of India, 2016. He has quoted from there, actually, this particular quotation. He speaks about racism, which is a virus, he says, which is there in our humanity existing. In fact, Cardinal Charles Bo, talking about racism on this Fratelli Tutti, he even said there is a bigger and worse virus than COVID, that is racism. Cardinal Charles Bo spoke about this actually, talking about this racism mentioned in this Fratelli Tutti. Dignity of women upheld in words but not in deeds. Many people speak about dignity and equality of women, but when it comes to practice, it is not done. It is not exercised. And finally, liberty and equality and fraternity. The famous French motto, he says, liberty and equality are meaningless without fraternity. So without fraternity, there is no liberty, there is no proper equality. So unless there is fellowship and fraternity, there is no role or place for liberty and equality. So these are the few themes. Now I would like to conclude. Another 10 minutes I would take. Some of the concluding comments I have about overall impression about this entire Fratelli Tutti. Something to begin positively. I would say Pope Francis is the first Pope to use inclusive language in all his documents. I know I used to follow all his documents, except maybe Lumen Fide, though it is credited to him. Almost every part of Lumen Fide is written by Benedict XVI. So you don't find inclusive language there, it is exclusive. But starting with Evangelii Gaudium and rest of the documents of Pope Francis, you will always find inclusive language. Though people criticize for this document, Fratelli Tutti, which is not inclusive. But it is inclusive in that culture, in that language of the time. So he does not use exclusive. Previous popes always used exclusive language, but this pope does not use. That is something credit, and we need to take our hat and appreciate Pope Francis for this. Number two, though familiar thoughts, most of the thoughts Pope has said earlier, some insights into family thoughts, like a stranger to be treated as one of us. The entire second chapter, as Archbishop said, is a meditation on the Good Samaritan's parable, and very beautifully written. And how do we need to treat strangers? You know, it is tough to treat someone as a family. So there is something always new, even the thoughts and stories and reference are earlier referred to or spoken about. Third one, Pope Francis mentions towards the end of the Fratelli Tutti that he was inspired by three people to write this encyclical. Martin Luther King, the freedom fighter for Afro-Americans, Desmond Tutu, the African Anglican bishop who got Nobel Peace Prize, and Mahatma Gandhi, our own father of the nation. He mentions these three people, that he acknowledged that he was inspired by them. But you don't find any reference to these three anywhere in the document, except towards the end, the last sentence, he says that he was inspired by these three people in writing this Fratelli Tutti. I would have put it this way, had he referred Martin Luther King or Mahatma Gandhi, in some topics that he had mentioned, he would have carried much more weight. For example, on the topic of racism, Martin Luther King's quotation could have helped actually. A direct citation from King, this is my opinion, it would have strengthened the text and condemnation of racism. Or for example, Mahatma Gandhi's philosophy of non-violence, that could have helped about war, the issues related to war. Because Mahatma Gandhi is the one who talked about and introduced to all of us, to the whole world, the philosophy of non-violence. So, but no reference, direct references, but Pope Francis acknowledges, saying he was inspired by these three people in writing this Fratelli Tutti. Another concluding comment, Francis again affirms the work of bishops' conferences and appears to want to have at least one reference to each region of the world. In Fratelli Tutti, the Pope cites the work of 12 conferences from all over the world. So he has quoted from major Episcopal Conference from all over the world, including Indian Episcopal Conference, CBCI. So Catholic Bishops Conference of India, he has quoted. So that is something good. It is not something new for Pope Francis. He has started this tradition from his first document, Evangelii Gaudium, officially his first document. Though Lumen Fide was his first, he always quotes from other sources, especially bishops' conferences. So Pope's not alone, he is in collegiality with the bishops, and their thoughts and reflections are taken seriously by him and considered into his teachings. That is something to be appreciated. Number 5, many people may ask at the end, is it a dream of Pope Francis? Never practical. What happens if you practice Fratelli Tutti? Suppose all in the world practice everything exhorted by Pope Francis in Fratelli Tutti. If everybody practices, what happens? The world will be a heaven, a paradise. So it still remains a dream. The world is not a paradise. So this dream remains a dream. Is it an impossible dream? That's a question many people ask. This is a quotation which I began. Archbishop also mentioned about it. And this is a dream of Pope Francis running throughout the entire Fratelli Tutti, which is mentioned in the introduction. Let us dream of a single human family, children of the same earth, of this common home. Each of us, now that is, I underline, that is, watch those words. Each of us bringing the richness of his or her beliefs and convictions. Each of us with his or her own voice, brothers and sisters. So it is not a dream. All should work together and all should change immediately. No, it should start from each one of us. Not with a nation, not with a family, not with any country, not with any organization. The dream of this single human family, it should start from each of us, bringing the richness from each of us. Unless each of us change and contribute to this single human family, nothing is going to happen. So that is Pope Francis' dream. A dream we have recited as kids. We have recited this dream, not only in this encyclical. When we were in the school, as kids, I have recited India, the pledge, the national pledge. India is my country, and all Indians are my brothers and sisters. This is how we have started our pledge every day in the school assembly. So this is a dream we utter every day. This is a dream of Pope Francis. Now, is it an impossible dream? Can we translate into real life situation and action? For which I would say each of us. Let us start from each of us, not with the entire nation. Each of us would have to begin and make a change. Now I'll conclude with a story, with a novel, which is very appealing to me to conclude with this. So with that, I will conclude. Victor Hugo, a novelist who lived in 19th century. He is a French novelist. He has written a famous novel, Les Miserables. It's a French title. The meaning of that title would be The Poor. It has many movie versions. Even a musical version recently came, this particular novel. A 19th century novelist, and This novel is about struggle about poverty, struggle about the social situation of the time, and struggle to be human being and really a human being when human beings are discriminated. And in the beginning of the novel, Victor Hugo writes this: as long as poverty exists in the world, as long as human beings are degraded, women oppressed, stories of this sort should be told and retold again. As long as poverty exists in the world, as long as humanity discriminates everyone, each other, women oppressed, and humanity degraded, stories of this type should be told and retold. Now, I would like to conclude with this and connect this one to Fratelli Tutti. What is the story about? What is the story about? The story about a convict, Jean Valjean, French person. He was accused of stealing a loaf of bread for his sister's child who was crying of hunger. And he stole a loaf of bread from a bakery, for which he was jailed for a few years. He tried to break the jail open and escape. He was caught, and several times he tried to escape and caught again. And finally, 19 years he spent in the jail, in the galleys. Finally, he was released after spending 19 years in the jail. When Jean Valjean, after 19 years, he has become rough and tough and tried to escape, and he tried to really, he was out after 19 years. When he was out after 19 years, nobody received him. Nobody gave him a job. Nobody accepted him. Nobody would give him any job or work or even an inn he could stay, because an escaped convict and 19 years in galleys, and people were frightened of him. He was rejected at every turn. And somebody told him, there is a bishop in the town. If you can approach that bishop, the bishop may do something needful to you. So this Jean Valjean goes to the bishop's house, and he introduces himself as this. This is what Jean Valjean introduced himself to the bishop. Jean Valjean, discharged convict, has been 19 years in the galleys, 5 years for housebreaking and burglary, 14 years for having attempted to escape on 4 occasions. He is a very dangerous man. There, everyone has cast me out. Are you willing to receive me? And you know what Bishop said? You need have told me nothing. This house is not mine, but Christ. It does not ask a man his name, but whether he is in need. You are in trouble, you are hungry and thirsty, and so you are welcome. You need not thank me for receiving you into my house. No one is at home here except those seeking shelter. And the bishop continued again, let me assure you, passerby though you are, that this is more your home than mine. Everything in it is yours. Why should I ask your name? In any case, I knew it before you told me. Then Jean Valjean was surprised. He asked, you know my name? And you know what Bishop said? Of course, your name is brother. And I would say, this is the summation of Fratelli Tutti. If each of us can say this, you are my brother or sister. Now, this is a fiction. This novel is a fiction. Now, our challenge is to convert this fiction into fact. Pope Francis had a dream. One can find Fratelli Tutti as an impossible dream of Pope Francis. Now, our challenge is to convert this dream into deeds. Thank you very much. That's all, Fratelli Tutti. And those of us who are not happy with Fratelli Tutti, Fratelli and Sorelle Tutti. Thank you very much.
as we look into this encyclical, we see that there are so many things that are so practical and concrete, down to earth. And the COVID-19 pandemic came in, and he reveals that in his talk, and he says, this goes to say that the global health emergency has helped us to demonstrate that no one can face life, as Father Gilbert already said, in isolation. So we need to, again Gilbert was saying, we need to dream as a family, as one human family, which is not very easy. We see it in our own country as well. There are so many distortions of the contemporary world, the manipulation of concepts such as democracy, freedom, justice, the loss of the meaning of social community and history, selfishness, indifference towards the common good, the prevalence of a market logic, and all these things are there in our midst. And therefore, we see that people are suffering. Our youth are also going through a lot of troubles. There is unemployment, there's racism, there is culture waste, there is disparity of rights, and it's never ending. And therefore, I think Father Gilbert, in a beautiful way, has covered everything and ended up with a beautiful story. I was just watching American Got Talent the other day, and there was a elderly man who came to perform at that talent contest. And they asked him, James, what's your name? What's your name there? He said, James. And then he said, why have you come here? And then he said, I was incarcerated for 27 years. I was wrongly accused of raping a white woman in America. And I remained in jail. There was no one who could come to me. It happened sometime in the afternoon. Nobody saw anything, but they just picked me up because I was black and took me and kept me. And finally, when it came to really 27 years later, they found that I was innocent and they let me out. And that's why I've just come here to participate. I was always dreaming of being a man on the stage, singing and entertaining people, and here am I. And everybody was in tears. So this is happening even today. And that's what Father Gilbert was trying to say in many words. And I think now we need to put it to our participants. First, I will request all the panelists to introduce themselves one by one. Maybe I'll start with Father CM, and then the ones after him could introduce themselves. And those who are participating, be brief and clear with your questions. We don't want to waste time. And so whatever we can do during this beautiful 1.5 hour session, Father Gilbert kept his time. Thank you, Father Gilbert. You really kept your time to half an hour. We started late, so you were on time. Great job done. I know you very well, and I know how good you are whatever you take up anything. So thank you for that wonderful exposition. May God bless you. And Father, I request you, Father CM first,
Hi.
with you.
Okay. Good evening, all. Nice to see Archbishop and my old friends, so many of you. It is wonderful. I am here in Darjeeling, Salesian College, Sonada. I've been out of Calcutta for a long time, from 2006, I guess. Well, now I'm here with the radio station and Department of Journalism and Mass Communication.
bridges. Efforts are made, but things are very slow. Now the challenge is, Holy Father is taking up, one of the challenges is deteriorating climate and the environment, how to protect our environment, economy, slowing down of the economy, political systems. And in every country, there is a lot of chaos and disturbances and effects of aggressive nationalism. Fundamentalism is growing practically everywhere. And there is racism, rising inequality, and the need to serve and accompany refugees, migrants, internally displaced persons. So these are some of the real concerns Holy Father is taking, which comes under social teachings of the Church and his pastoral concern. And Holy Father in 2019 proposed a plan for the migrants, especially, to welcome them, to protect them, to promote and to integrate. These are the 4 words he uses. So if these could be implemented in our own pastoral concerns in the dioceses, in the whole of India, no matter what situation people are, especially the marginalized and people who are displaced and those who are without homes, without jobs, how to integrate them.
Very good. Thank you, Father. I think, you know, right now, I'm in Goa right now, and in Goa, there's a lot of protests going on. Last night, midnight, the railway employees came and they wanted to start the work on the double track because they want to help Adani to take his coal to other parts of India. And so the people at midnight came and protested. And I think this is where I think we need to make this encyclical of light. Let our people know, and they want to save ecology. They don't want the forests to go. They don't want their lands to be lost. They don't want the places where they cultivate food to go away. So this is what they're protesting. And the government is doing this very stealthily by coming at midnight with police force. But the people were strong enough last night, and they did not allow them to even pay the hoe to begin their work. So this kind of thing, I think this is where we'll save life, we'll save the ecology, and we'll do many other things, I think. But I prefer, I just saw an ASCC publisher joining. Would you like to say something about yourself and about the encyclical? You're not named.
That's a broadcast account, technical account.
Okay. Farrell, would you like to say something?
After a little while, it's good that either Father Paul or someone
Archbishop
else.
Thomas.
It's good the panelists speak first.
All right, let Archbishop Thomas.
I just want to mention 2 points. See, for us here in Calcutta, one of the greatest opportunities, I would say, not just challenges, but also opportunities. The opportunity is what the Holy Father in chapter 6 and chapter 8 of the encyclical mentions very clearly. One is, it is dialogue and friendship in society. See, it is possible for us here. We only have what we call faith, inter-religious sort of forum. Unfortunately, in the pandemic, we are a bit low, but this needs to come up more, because friendship is the way in which we can build relationship. And with our brothers and sisters, and they are good people. They're good people. Very often, as I also mentioned in our address, we must share our prejudices. There are good people, and if you talk to them, you meet them, make an effort to meet them, invite them, put them, etc. I think we can do a lot of work in this by building friendship. Second thing is religions at the service of fraternity in our world. See, in our context of India today, religions seem to be acting one against the other, and a lot of hatred. You know, I can't stand the other because he or she belongs to another religion. Now, this should slowly go. And that can come only, as the Holy Father says, when we open our hearts, make them broad, without frontiers, without borders, and therefore accept everyone as my brother and sister. Not just mention religion, but first see him or her as my brother and sister. I think lots of good can be done that way, and that can come on to live together, not to discuss about religion, but to discuss how we as human beings, brothers and sisters, can serve society, can live together, and how we can promote peace. And I think that has to be, and we have beautiful opportunities here. We have good people in the city, in our whole Bengal, there's a beautiful environment that way for dialogue as well as for friendship, especially in regard to religions. Is what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Archbishop. I think that's a very good point. I think we need to promote more dialogue with other religions and also among ourselves. And that would help us to enhance this. That is what we need to do. Anybody else would like to come in and say anything? Till what time can I go, Mr. Farrell? Till what time can we go on? Because we started late. At what time do we end? Farrell, are you there? Dominic?
Are you there?
Archbishop, would you like to say what time do we end this
No,
this
supposedly
colloquium?
8:30. Supposedly 8:30.
Yeah, it's already 1 minute left.
Yeah. So you.
So should we end it? We'll come to the conclusion.
Yes. Now we could come to a summary.
All right.
Because it's 10 minutes over already, so we can come to summary.
So I think there are, besides what is already there in the encyclical, and as Father Gilbert so beautifully expounded the whole encyclical in his own way and gave us a gist of it. Sorry, and Archbishop Thomas also spoke so in his inaugural speech about the whole thing, and then religious dialogue. There are many other points worth mentioning. Francis calls for an end, as Father Gilbert mentioned, end to war as a means of foreign policy, state aggrandizement or problem, which is not there, as Bishop just mentioned, dialogue between religions, the need for ecological reform in our lifestyle. But I shall conclude by making a few observations on the relevance and what is missing. Start with what is missing. Above all, what I feel, this is my personal opinion, apply all this to the church. There are many challenges the church faces, which in the past have been brushed aside, treated as outside the realm of legitimate dialogue, or simply disallowed from any serious discussion. Prominent today are Pope Francis mentioned but we cannot be just saying we are not represented. I think we need to go on and try to really make things happen and bring our women to the fore and tell them, let's work together. There are some people who are very strong-headed, they don't like this title. In Latin, it is brothers and sisters. But in other languages, when it's translated, it may not give that meaning. But we need to be more open-minded and think about it deeply and more deeper. So Pope Francis describes this crisis so brilliantly. He speaks as the head of the Catholic Church, but to the world as a whole in a manner that brings Catholic social thought into dialogue with cutting-edge political theory and philosophy. Above all, he calls us to rethink our practices and realign them with solidarity, community, dialogue, and reconciliation. It has always struck me how so many people outside the church, many far outside religion, seem to admire Pope Francis. It's not surprising. He speaks with everyone for everyone. Though many may find its title, particularly in its translation into non-Latin languages, problematic, I think we can go ahead and make people understand. Fratelli Tutti, according to me, offers us much to reflect on, much to implement in the church as much as in wider society. Sometimes I think, whatever his real limitations, Pope Francis is the statesman so many countries need. Perhaps we did some of the things he suggests here. We'd get leaders we need. Another, Pope Francis responds to the many crises we face in a globalized society. Does Pope Francis have an easy solution for civilizing political discourse, free and ending war? No. But we must admire his audacity for trying. In a world full of cynical pragmatists, Pope Francis stands out as an idealistic rebel, I would say. While it is doubtful that anyone will agree with every single point that he makes in Fratelli Tutti, the problems that Pope Francis identifies are undoubtedly real. A busy Catholic, it is worth taking time to read Fratelli Tutti, to expand our spiritual horizon and prayerfully hope for a better world and a better future. With these few words, I conclude. Thank you very much. Thank you, Archbishop, Father Dominic, Father C.M. Paul, Father Francis Rosario, Father Gilbert Chundel, my good friend. Thank you for your wonderful exposition. Mr. Farrell for calling me, Christian Kramer for wanting me to be as the moderator, and to all my dear friends on the line, thank you so much. God bless you. Good night.
Thank you all. Good night. Good night. And Farrell, thank you very much.
Thank you,
The
Father.
entire team, for the
Thank you.
Gilbert, for the Dominic, for the Paul, for the Iris, all the best. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have
Christine,
a
of course.
short
Christine
vote
is
of
there.
thanks.
Yeah.
I have a short vote of thanks
Oh,
to
sorry.
present. And that is fine. But everyone has thanked everyone. But still, I'll just make the official thanks. So it's my honor and privilege to propose today's vote of thanks. The simple endeavor came to be because of the support and encouragement of a few people who shared their expertise, the time, love to make it a reality. Archbishop Thomas D'Souza, of course, heads this list. Thank you, dear Archbishop, for your constant encouragement for the projects of this commission, as you reminded me, and for all good things. So I sincerely hope we succeeded in fulfilling that objective, and this colloquium is a good thing for our diocese. Vicar General, Father Dominic Gomes, despite of a multitude of projects you're busy with, thank you for making the time to be here, and also for your enthusiasm, which was inspiring as always. Father Iris, our moderator, thank you. Yours was the pivotal role, and you succeeded out bringing, at least at the end, without many questions. I don't know why we didn't receive any questions, but without that, I think you succeeded in summarizing all that we had today. Father Gilbert, of course, our keynote speaker. We couldn't have done without you because, frankly, I went through a bit of Fratelli Tutti, but it was so well explained here. I think now a second reading will really make it seep in. So thank you very much. Let's give a little bit of applause for Father Gilbert. Thank you, Father. And also for yourself, all our wonderful panelists, Father C.M. Paul, my very old and dear friend, Sister Monica, who wasn't here, she's having fever, but thank you for consenting to participate. Father Sunil Rosario, thank you very much. Miss Christine Cameron, thank you very much. So you're a representative of the lay, media, social workers, migrants. So I think it was quite a mix. And to the musicians, which you didn't hear, but actually were playing in the background, thank you, Peterson Brothers, Craig D'Souza. And also thank you, AC team in the background, Althea, Dhanlakshmi, Deepak, and Triza. Thank you all very much. And at the close of this, I do hope we've managed to put a spark in those people who are watching online, and they will pick up Fratelli Tutti and put it to practical use in their daily life as Christians and as Catholics. Thank you all very much. Good night.
And thank you, Farrell. Thank you for organizing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Farrell. Thank you, Farrell, so much.
Thank you, Farrell. Thank you for inviting me. God bless. Good night.
All to your grace.
Thank you, Farrell. Good night. God bless.
Thank you. Good night. Good night all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.